stand at the gates of Kensington Palace, and the building glows with centuries of power. Red brick catching afternoon light, windows reflecting clouds that drift like ghosts, gardens manicured to impossible perfection. But this palace was never just a beautiful residence. Behind those walls, Princess Diana fought battles the cameras never captured. Inside those rooms, she discovered that royal privilege comes with a price most people cannot imagine. Within that estate, surrounded by staff and security and centuries of tradition, she felt more alone than she had ever been in her life. This is the story of Kensington Palace. The real story, the one written in architecture, in staff accounts, in the invisible infrastructure that made royal life possible while making Diana's life impossible. The story of what it costs to live in a palace when you're really not supposed to be yourself. Kensington Palace was never meant to be the center of anything. Built in 1605 as Nottingham House, a Jacobean mansion on the western edge of London, it served as a country retreat for aristocrats who wanted proximity to power without living in Westminster's chaos. The original structure was modest by royal standards. 2 stories, red brick, functional more than ornamental. Then, in 1689, everything changed. King William III and Queen Mary II needed a residence. Westminster Palace was too damp for William's asthma. St. James's Palace felt too formal. They wanted something healthier, quieter, more private. They purchased Nottingham House for £18,000, roughly £3.5 million today. The architect was Sir Christopher Wren, the man who rebuilt St. Paul's Cathedral after the Great Fire of London. Wren understood grandeur. He also understood restraint. His work at Kensington would blend both. The transformation took years. Wren added new wings, creating the palace's characteristic U-shape. He designed the King's Staircase with wrought iron railings by Jean Tijoux, considered among the finest metalwork in England. He created state apartments with ceilings painted by William Kent, elaborate trompe-l'oeil effects that made rooms appear larger, grander, infinite. The palace grew. Queen Anne added the orangery in 1704, designed by Nicholas Hawksmoor. A spectacular building in itself, 70 feet long, brick construction, huge arched windows designed to capture every moment of sunlight for the exotic citrus trees inside. King George I commissioned the cupola room, a perfect tube of opulence. Gilded walls, ceiling murals, marble statues. The room where Queen Victoria would be baptized decades later. By the mid-1700s, Kensington Palace covered 5 acres under one roof. Not as vast as Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, but substantial, imposing, unmistakably royal. But here's what matters. Kensington was always designed as a private residence, not a public showpiece. The state apartments impressed foreign dignitaries, but the private apartments where royals actually lived were meant for family life. Smaller rooms, lower ceilings, more human scale. This duality would define everything about Princess Diana's experience there. Stand in Kensington Palace and 2 worlds exist simultaneously. The public face, state apartments tourists visit today, rooms decorated with artwork worth millions, furniture that witnessed centuries of power, ceilings where angels painted in 1722 still float in plaster clouds, and the private face, apartments behind locked doors, where actual people attempted actual lives under impossible surveillance. The building is red brick, laid in Flemish bond alternating headers and stretchers, creating patterns that catch light differently throughout the day. The roof is slate, Welsh slate quarried in Snowdonia and transported to London in the 1690s. Some of those original slates remain after 330 years. The palace contains approximately 547 rooms. Not all are grand. Many are service spaces, staff corridors, storage areas, the mechanical systems that keep an ancient building functioning in modern times. Windows number in the hundreds. Some date to Wren's original construction. Others were added during Victoria's extensive renovations in the 1830s. Each window is a potential security concern, a point where privacy might be breached, or photographers might capture what was never meant to be seen. The grounds span 275 acres. Kensington Gardens, technically separate but visually continuous, add another 265 acres of manicured landscape. Together, they create an island of green in central London, walking paths, ponds, fountains, monuments, and crucially, gates that can be locked. The palace sits on Crown Estate land. This means it's not owned by the royal family personally, but held in trust. The distinction matters. It means the building serves state purposes, not just private ones. It means renovations require approval. It means privacy is always negotiable. When Princess Diana moved into apartments 8 and 9 in August 1981, just after her wedding to Prince Charles, she entered a building where every wall told her she was temporary. The structure had stood for 300 years. Monarchs had been born, ruled, and died within these rooms. Queens had shaped history from these chambers. Diana was 20 years old. The apartments assigned to the Prince and Princess of Wales occupied a significant portion of the palace's northwest corner. Combined, apartments 8 and 9 provided approximately 20 rooms across multiple floors. Not massive by palace standards, but substantial. The entrance was private, accessed through a separate gate from Kensington Palace Gardens. Security officers stood watch around the clock. Visitors required clearance. Staff required background checks. Every delivery was inspected. Inside, the rooms carried the awkward tension of trying to blend 17th century architecture with 20th century life. High ceilings, 12 to 15 feet in the main rooms. Ornate cornicing. Original wood floors, oak and pine, creaking with age. Fireplaces in every major room, most no longer functional, but preserved for historical accuracy. The windows were enormous. Georgian sash windows, double-hung, with wavy glass that distorted the view slightly, a characteristic of hand-blown panes from the 1700s. Beautiful and utterly impractical for privacy. Diana's drawing room overlooked Kensington Gardens. Floor-to-ceiling windows. No curtains heavy enough to fully block the view from outside. On summer evenings, tourists walking past could glimpse movement inside. Photographers with telephoto lenses stationed themselves in the park daily. The main staircase was narrow, a concession to the building's age. Modern royalty navigating 300-year-old proportions. The nursery was on the second floor. William and Harry's rooms. Bright paint, toys, the sound of children's laughter echoing through spaces where Queen Victoria had once slept. But the nursery also had panic buttons, monitored 24 hours, security cameras in hallways. No window could be opened more than 6 inches. The kitchen was industrial, designed to serve formal dinners, not family meals. Staff prepared food according to protocol, specific serving times, specific presentation standards. Diana famously broke these rules, sometimes preparing simple suppers herself, dismissed servants early, ate with her sons in the nursery. Each breach of protocol was noted, reported, discussed. The palace employed approximately 50 staff directly for the Prince and Princess of Wales, private secretaries, press officers, ladies-in-waiting, chefs, housekeepers, dressers, drivers, security personnel. Each person served a function. Each person reported to someone. The hierarchy was medieval in complexity. Diana was watched constantly, not with malice, with duty. Every phone call logged, every visitor recorded, every outing scheduled, approved, and coordinated with multiple offices. The apartment had no back door, no secret exit. When Diana left, it was through monitored gates with security in attendance. The building meant to protect her became the building that tracked her. Step past the elegant rooms tourists see, and the palace reveals its true nature. Infrastructure. Beneath the state apartments, in basements and sub-basements, the building contains the mechanical systems necessary to maintain royal operations. The heating system alone is staggering. Original fireplaces proved inadequate by Victorian times. Radiators were added in the 1880s, massive cast-iron units fed by coal-fired boilers in the basement. By the 1970s, the system had been updated to oil, then natural gas. Boilers the size of cars generate heat distributed through miles of piping behind walls and under floors. The palace consumes approximately 1.2 million kilowatt-hours of electricity annually, equivalent to powering 230 average British homes. Cooling systems, lighting, security equipment, communications infrastructure, all running continuously. Water arrives through Victorian-era pipes, some still made of lead. Concerns about contamination led to extensive replumbing in the 1990s, work that required tearing through walls and floors while preserving historical fabric. The telephone system was cutting edge in 1981. Digital switching, multiple lines, encrypted security for sensitive communications. By today's standards, primitive, but at the time, sophisticated enough to ensure every conversation could be monitored if necessary. Security infrastructure transformed dramatically after Diana's arrival. The princess required protection at a level previously unnecessary at Kensington. New cameras, new sensors, reinforced gates, bulletproof glass in certain windows. The cost of these upgrades never appeared in public budgets. Crown estate expenditures are not itemized for individual royals, but estimates suggest millions of pounds, tens of millions in today's money, were spent fortifying apartments 8 and 9. Staff quarters occupied the attics and side wings. Small rooms, low ceilings, basic furnishings. The people who made royal life possible lived in spaces far removed from the grandeur they maintained. Laundry facilities operated around the clock. Diana's wardrobe alone required constant attention. Gowns that cost thousands of pounds, worn once, cleaned, stored, catalogued. Household linens changed daily. Towels replaced after every use. The palace kitchen could serve dinners for 100 guests. Industrial refrigeration. Commercial-grade stoves. Ventilation systems powerful enough to clear smoke from dozens of dishes cooking simultaneously. Food arrived daily. Deliveries from royal warrant holder suppliers authorized to serve the royal family. Every item inspected. Every supplier vetted. Nothing random. Nothing unplanned. This parallel world of service corridors, mechanical rooms, staff dormitories, and security offices existed so the public-facing palace could appear effortless. Diana lived in the beautiful apartment above, but the machine beneath made that life possible, and the machine never stopped watching. Palaces require people, not just residents, workers. During Diana's residency, Kensington Palace employed approximately 150 full-time staff across all apartments and administrative functions. Of those, roughly 50 served the Prince and Princess of Wales directly. Let's name some of them. Paul Burrell, Diana's butler from 1987 until her death. Previously served the Queen, understood protocol intimately, became Diana's confidant, one of the few staff members she trusted completely. After her death, he would publish books about their relationship, controversial, but revealing the emotional reality of her isolation. Patrick Jeffson, private secretary from 1988 to 1996, responsible for managing Diana's schedule, correspondence, public appearances. Cambridge educated, former Royal Navy officer. Resigned after Diana's Panorama interview, a breach of protocol so severe it made his position untenable. Ken Wharf, personal protection officer from 1987 to 1993, former Metropolitan Police, tasked with keeping Diana safe while allowing her as much freedom as possible. An impossible balance. He later described watching her struggle with depression, bulimia, public scrutiny. He could protect her from physical threats, not from the palace system itself. Chef Mervyn Wycherley prepared meals for the Wales family during the 1980s, trained at classical French cuisine. Asked to accommodate Diana's eating disorder, small portions, specific timings, meals often uneaten. He later described the sadness of preparing elaborate dishes that went back to the kitchen untouched. These were real people. They had families, mortgages, lives beyond palace walls. They were paid well by ordinary standards. A lady-in-waiting might earn £25,000 to £35,000 annually in the 1990s, comfortable but not extravagant. Security officers earned similar amounts. Senior staff, like private secretaries, earned more, £50,000 to £70,000. But they couldn't discuss their work publicly. Confidentiality agreements bound them permanently. Speaking about the royal family meant legal consequences, professional ruin, and social ostracism. They witnessed Diana's unhappiness, her arguments with Charles, her tears, her moments of joy with her sons, and they stayed silent, because that was the job. There were good years. Between 1982 and 1985, after William's birth and before the marriage truly fractured, Kensington Palace functioned as Diana hoped it might. Christmas 1983 stands out in accounts from staff and family. William's first Christmas at Kensington. Diana decorated the apartments herself, unusual for royal residences where staff typically handled such tasks. She insisted on a real tree in the nursery. Lights and ornaments she selected personally. She hosted small gatherings. Friends from her pre-royal life, carefully vetted but welcomed. Laughter echoed through rooms usually governed by formality. She transformed nursery routines. Rather than following royal tradition of minimal parental involvement, Diana was present. Bath time, story time. Playing on the floor with William, later with Harry. The palace gardens became her sanctuary during these years. Early mornings, before official duties began, she walked alone through Kensington Gardens. Staff learned to give her space. Those walks were precious, the only time she could move unscheduled, unreported, unwatched. She opened the apartments occasionally for charity events. The rooms filled with guests, music, purpose. Diana thrived when serving causes she believed in: homelessness, AIDS research, landmine victims. The palace became a platform for work she found meaningful. Photographs from this period show her glowing. Not the performative smile for cameras, genuine warmth. But even at peak, the pressure was building. By 1986, the marriage was crumbling. Charles spent increasing time at Highgrove, their country estate. Diana remained at Kensington with the boys. The apartments felt emptier. Staff noticed the prince and princess rarely shared the same schedule. Diana's bulimia worsened. Staff found her in bathrooms after meals, heard her sobbing behind locked doors. The palace doctor was called repeatedly. Specialists consulted. But the underlying cause, the impossible pressure of royal life, combined with a failing marriage, couldn't be treated with medicine. She began calling journalists. Secretly at first. Payphones outside the palace. Then more boldly. She wanted her story told. The palace wanted silence. Security reports noted her erratic behavior. Leaving the palace suddenly. Returning late. Refusing escort. Each breach of protocol documented, discussed, used as evidence of instability. A building itself seemed to constrict around her. In 1992, Andrew Morton's book, Diana, Her True Story, revealed the depth of her unhappiness. The palace erupted. How had she communicated with Morton? Who facilitated? What else might be disclosed? Trust evaporated. Staff wondered who was reporting to whom. Diana withdrew further. By 1994, Charles publicly admitted infidelity. Diana responded with the Panorama interview in 1995, filmed secretly, broadcast to 23 million viewers. She spoke about her marriage, her eating disorder, her desire to be queen of people's hearts. The palace was furious, but the public rallied to her, and Kensington Palace became something unexpected, a symbol of a woman trapped by tradition, fighting for autonomy, winning public sympathy even as palace officials condemned her actions. In December 1992, the formal separation was announced. Diana remained at Kensington Palace. Charles moved permanently to Highgrove and Clarence House. The divorce was finalized in August 1996. Diana lost the title Her Royal Highness, a deliberate humiliation. She became Diana, Princess of Wales, a technical distinction that signaled her diminished status. But she kept apartments 8 and 9. This was crucial. She needed a London base for her sons, for her work. The palace became her headquarters for what she called her second life. She stripped away some of the formality, reduced staff, simplified routines, tried to create normalcy in an inherently abnormal space. She hosted her son's friends, invited celebrities, Elton John, George Michael, others who understood fame's burden. The apartments felt less like a royal residence, more like a refuge. But the photographers never left. The gates were constantly monitored, every visitor photographed, every outing documented. In July 1997, she vacationed in the Mediterranean with Dodi Fade. Photographs of their romance splashed across tabloids worldwide. She returned to Kensington briefly, then flew to Paris, August 31st, 1997. She never came home. News of Diana's death reached London around 4 a.m. By noon, people began gathering at Kensington Palace gates. By evening, flowers covered the sidewalk. By the next morning, the tribute stretched hundreds of feet in every direction. Roses, lily, handwritten notes, teddy bears, candles, photographs, poems, letters addressed to her sons. The gates disappeared beneath the weight of grief. Officials were unprepared. Nothing in royal protocol addressed spontaneous public mourning on this scale. Police estimated over 1 million bouquets were left outside Kensington Palace in the week following Diana's death. The smell was overwhelming, flowers rotting in late summer heat. Staff worked around the clock, removing wilted tributes to make room for new ones. People queued for hours to sign condolence books. Strangers wept openly. The atmosphere felt apocalyptic, a collective reckoning with loss that transcended one woman's death and became something about the loss of hope itself. Diana's body lay in state at St. James's Palace. But Kensington was where people came to mourn her, because Kensington was where she lived, where she raised her sons, where she fought for her identity. The palace, meant to represent permanence and tradition, became the site of grief for a woman who represented change and empathy. The irony was brutal. Today, portions of Kensington Palace are open to the public. The state apartments showcase royal history, Queen Victoria's childhood rooms, the King's staircase with Tiju's ironwork, the cupola room where she was baptized, and since 2012, a permanent Diana exhibition. Her dresses, personal items, photographs chronicling her evolution from shy kindergarten teacher to global humanitarian. The current residents include Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales. They occupy apartment 1A with their children. Renovations in 2013 cost approximately £4.5 million updated infrastructure while preserving historical character. William grew up in apartments 8 and 9. He remembers his mother there, the nursery, the gardens, the moments of joy between the chaos. Returning as an adult, as a father himself, must feel impossibly complex. The building stands, red brick aging gracefully, slate roofs patched and maintained, gardens immaculate. But something changed after 1997. The palace can no longer represent unquestioned tradition. Diana's experience revealed the human cost of systems designed to preserve institutions over individuals. Kensington Palace is beautiful. It is also a reminder. Let's calculate what Kensington Palace cost during Diana's years there. Annual operating expenses for the palace in the 1990s. Approximately 3 to 4 million pounds. Security upgrades for Diana's apartments. Estimated 2 to 3 million pounds over 10 years. Staff salaries for the Wales household. Roughly 1.5 million pounds annually. Total, approximately 30 to 40 million pounds across 16 years. In today's money, well over 100 million pounds. For what? To maintain an illusion of fairy tale royalty while the reality crumbled. To surveil a young woman struggling with mental health. To preserve protocols that prioritized image over welfare. Diana paid a different cost. Her privacy, her autonomy, her ability to be herself without performance or surveillance. And ultimately, her life, though the connection between palace pressure and her death is indirect. The chase that killed her stemmed from the fame the palace both created and exploited. If the palace that was supposed to give her everything took everything from her instead, what does that say about the cost of living in a fairy tale?